Welcome. Welcome to another edition of Afternoon Idle. My name is Andrew. I'm your host, and we normally spend about 15 minutes meditating and maybe 5 minutes of 5 to 7 minutes of setup, and then a little bit of time for reports or questions. I'll always offer responses, although I may not have answers. So yeah, I find myself talking a fair bit about the optimal. So we don't meditate to. You probably have heard this. This is somewhat of a pretty rote adage, but we don't meditate to be good meditators necessarily. We meditate to help us show up in life the way we want to show up. So it's not really about, being a kick-ass meditator. It's about being able to meet the challenges and things. And sometimes challenges appear harder than they really are, or they're not really a challenge, even though they appear that way. It sort of is a bit of this notion of and the obstacle is a way, kind of that thought. So, but anyway, so we'll talk about, especially as a coach, I'll talk about things like what to do if you're finding it difficult to meditate, or you're maybe having an adverse reaction to the way things are in the present moment. Everything's sucking, or the shit's kind of coming undone, or whatever it might be. And so usually the coaching advice on that is to focus out. This comes a bit from a standpoint of grounding. When you hear about grounding, like finding 5 things you can touch, or 4 things around you, or 3 things that you smell, or something like that. And the idea is to sort of anchor away from what's going on internally, and in essence, settling the body as a result of grounding or anchoring on what's around you. And so I was going to do something different today, but we're going to do here out, because I'm just in absolute, not in a real good spot right now. Not in a bad spot either, but I'm in a frustrating spot when it comes to my morning, so to speak. And it's really, in the grand scheme of things, no big deal, but it really is annoying and unsettling for me. So that's what I'm going to guide. And then we'll shift from that. So I'll guide from kind of where I'm at, for good or ill. And we'll do, for me, just to when I anchor out, the more helpful thing for me to anchor out is to anchor out to sounds. You can anchor out to sights as well. It's more difficult, I think. But if that's a thing for you, go for it. Or you can do sort of a focus out, where you're feeling the external, maybe the coolness of the air on the skin, and hearing sounds and seeing out, whatever that might be. But for me, at least, the notion of the category of hear, or hear out, auditory sounds, is one that's more settling. Now, that's partly because my environment, as it's showing up right now around me, is such that the external sounds, or auditory sounds, they're not what's a good term? They're not disruptive. So, but if you have barking, or jackhammering, or construction, or something like that, then maybe that's a bad choice. So what it comes down to is what Jeff Warren talks about, is this idea of being your own mind-body DJ, of seeing where the mind and the body are at, and then pairing or matching a practice to that. So having the ability to have a robust set, to pull from the DJ analogy, having something you can pull out of the crates and put that on and do a bit of a state change for you. And so I'm super activated. I'm really angry. All sorts of things. And that is like, my internal weather at the moment. So focusing out has a way, likely for me, at least it has in the past, of shifting the state that I'm in, of taking where I'm at and then shifting it. So, and then the last thing I'll offer as an aside is we normally do a contrast sit. So we'll take something out of the bag of tricks, or pulling from our DJ analogy, pulling a record out of our crate, and we'll put that in at the front. It could be a number of things. Usually they're noting practice coming from the Unified Mindfulness system. And we compare that with the technique of no technique, or this like the no technique of do nothing. And then somewhere in between is usually what we're looking at for what's beneficial. So again, we're pairing different meditations for where we're at. This is partly why meditation apps as an intervention are helpful, because you have a sort of catalog of being able to pick from, and you can leverage your sensory clarity to know where you're at. Like knowing where you're at is actually really, really cool to, not cool, but that's a big benefit. I spent a lot of times just being in nasty ass moods and not really understanding or knowing why, sort of pre-meditation, so to speak. So, and then also being in that spot, I didn't have the empowerment to say, okay, I can take the state that I'm in and shift it. So, so yeah, that's probably enough. So here out will be our category. Again, in the unified mindfulness world, we have 3 categories: see, hear, and feel. And so here is, just in the quick thumbnail, here is external sounds around us. You may find a sound of a humming refrigerator, or maybe air blowing through a vent. All of those are possible things. And so what do? We focus on that, focus our attention, soak it in, note it, optionally label it here, and then allow our attention to release. And if it goes back to that, fine. If it goes to another sound, totally fine. Let's do this. 15 minutes. So I invite you to adopt a posture that helps you be both relaxed and alert. Upright, dignified. And each of us holds tension in different places. So often when we bring attention to an area where there is tension, it may melt away. And if it doesn't, then that's our first chance to bring a no big deal quality to our sit. So if you know where you hold tension, you go ahead and see if there's any tension in that location. And if nasal breathing is available to you, I invite you to take in a few conscious, deliberate breaths in through the nose and out through the nose. And in that exhale, we're extending or accentuating that, lengthening it. And when we breathe in this low and slow tempo, so we breathe in slow, and it allows us to get low into the bottom lung of the lungs. And it's this tempo, slow and low, that helps us to cue to the nervous system that we can bring on the rest and relaxation system, the parasympathetic. And to start out, we'll set our focus range as being external sounds. Hear out. The label we'll use is just here, so HEAR. And then just an acceptance early that our attention will be pulled away by itches. My nose itches, so I know that there's a real good chance that my attention will be pulled away by that, or maybe mental talk or mental image. Being able to offer a sense of caring in acknowledging that. And when we have noticed or we've woke up to being outside of our focus range, just bring the attention back to sounds around us. And we can tweak the Joseph Goldstein instruction of sit and know that you're sitting, so we can hear and know that we're hearing. So explore this for a while. I'll check back in. So, one thing that can arise when we focus on sounds around us is that think of that sound, maybe a distant sound, will trigger sort of impressions in sensory experience. So, for me, there was a sound, and it sounded like the USPS postal truck. And so that triggered an image of the postal truck, and then a series of thoughts around, I wonder if we got mail or things of that relation. So it's the waking up to that when we've been pulled away that is key. Bringing our attention back with care, continuing to focus. So keep going. So I just got a I noticed that YouTube says that my connection is unstable. So I may or may not be here. I mean, I know I may or may not be in the live stream. So this is your chance to shift and move to having no technique as your technique, and changing over to this open range perspective. So in do nothing, we allow whatever happens to happen, and if we spontaneously notice that we're trying to control or direct our attention, we let that go. As always, this is an invitation. You can, if you're like me, remain where you were. And so I offer do nothing as an option for you, but I'm going to stay and hear out. So part of the do nothing technique that has real power and impact is the letting go part. There's a bit of an opportunity to play with that when we shift. For just a few more minutes. If your eyes have been closed, I invite you to open them. With some ease, connect to your surroundings. Stretch a bit. Thank you for your practice. Thank you for getting to the seat here and applying effort. If you haven't had a chance to do the 10% happier meditation from today, it's kind of a go-to thought for me, this idea of just applying enough effort to get yourself to the seat. And good to know. Thank you, Sarah. So I thought we were having connection problems, so that's good. But the idea is just using enough effort to get to the seat and then letting go. And good sit or bad sit, that's all extra. I had this notion the other day that sort of whatever you're looking for, it's going to show up right here. And I don't know, I kind of laughed about that because although it was this really true sort of feeling or insight for me, it also something I was like, oh, I don't think anybody will understand what I actually mean by that. But I understood, so that was the kind of a thing. So in knowing that, or in that being a thing, just getting enough effort to sit is good. Knowing you don't need to sit, like if it's not a good time to sit, if it's an adverse time, don't do it. Hearing that from Jeff and Jeff Warren, and also you hear that from Lama Rod as well. The idea that you can if there's too much coming on, you feel too unsupported, that you can suspend the practice. So I find myself in this funny spot where I've committed to doing these guidances, and And it's probably 3 or 4 times now in the last couple months where I was really not in a good spot necessarily to be leading a practice, but hopefully that comes off in a spot where you get to see kind of like, what is someone who supposedly has been doing this for a while? How do they react to being in a semi-adverse yet controlled adverse situation? So, well, I appreciate everyone who's joined in live, and those few that watch after in the recorded spot. Appreciate that. And yeah, they can be good. So we're at the bottom of the hour, or really, really close to approaching the bottom of the hour. I'll see everyone tomorrow for Wednesday, and then a reminder on Thursday. We'll continue to switch things up, and we'll do nothing at the front and something at the end. And there's a distinct possibility tomorrow that it'll just be a do nothing sit the whole way through. So just as a tease, there's a real good chance of that. All right. Have a good Tuesday.